Which players are worthy of being in the NHL top 100? And where does the TV deal in other sports leave the NHL? All on today's Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, August 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix and 2 to 4 times a week during the off season. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONHL for $20 off of your first purchase. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show. We're going to discuss more days with the Cup and a little bit of a different twist for a few guys this time around, as it's still making its rounds around Canada currently. We're going to discuss the TV deals and other sports and where that possibly leaves the NHL, take a few guesses, and also which Panthers players are possibly worthy of being in the top 100. And if you're watching on the YouTube, you can tell that I have a different background for today's edition of the show, as I'm currently road tripping outside of the state of Florida for my day job and currently driving through Tallahassee, Florida, as I've been here for so many years with my brother and a few cousins that have attended Florida State and also been to this coffee shop called Lucky Goat Coffee Co., which is also a roastery that have been here for so many years. And I actually have a coffee right here. It's called the Lucky Bomb. It's vanilla, cream, and an espresso shot. So gonna do take a little bit of a sip before continuing. That stuff good. So if you guys hear the birds chirping, enjoy the little bit of the background noise. And if you're on the YouTube, enjoy the views, as have a few in the corner of this coffee shop trying to do a podcast and not interrupting the piece here. But let's talk about a few of the days with the Cup with the Florida Panthers in this first segment. So the Cup returned to the Western Hemisphere, where it made its way to British Columbia, where Sam Reinhart is from, a native of West Vancouver, and then also made its way to the eastern side of Canada, where Sam Bennett and Aaron Ekblad also got their days with the Cup. So a little bit of a difference between last year's day with the Cup for Sam Reinhart versus this year. Last year, we saw the video of him putting the Stanley Cup as a ball marker when he was going around on the golf course. So a little bit of a difference this time around for Sam Reinhart. It took it on a boat ride with the Canadian Coast Guard, and the video that I found most hilarious was the fact that he was using the Stanley Cup as a little bit of weight as he was doing a workout. So instead of adding actual weights to one of his workouts, he puts the Stanley Cup, 35 pounds. That is gonna definitely help him there. And also using the Stanley Cup as a bench press. We saw that with Jonah Gadjevic's day with the Cup last year. Now Sam Reinhart implemented that in his day with the Cup. Also took it to one of the hospitals to be with the children. And honestly, that's been a thing that a lot of the guys with their days with the Cup have taken it to children for them to see. So honestly, just nice gestures all around with these guys, taking them around for kids, for those to see, because these guys are role models. The kids definitely look up to them. So that's also really, really cool. But then the Cup made its way to Newmarket, Ontario, where it's a little north of Toronto, where Sam Bennett is from. And he took it to a regional cancer center for where his mother and mother-in-law work. So this is the cool thing about Sam Bennett off the ice is, like we mentioned earlier in the summer, that he's marrying he married someone who he's known since elementary school, and then his mother and mother-in-law also work in the same cancer center. So the relationship between not only Sam Bennett and his now wife is great, but the fact that the parents get along as well and they work in the same place, it's just one big happy family. And then bringing it over there is awesome. But also got the opportunity to take it to a retirement center where his grandmother currently resides. 94 years young that he brought the Stanley Cup to. Last year, she was able to drink some champagne out of the cup at a party that he hosted at a house. But this year, as she's gotten older, as she's aged, she is not able to leave the retirement center. So what kind of gesture did Sam Bennett do? He brought the Stanley Cup to her. So just outstanding that Sam Bennett was able to do that for his grandmother. And also, we spoke so many times throughout the year on Benny's Buddies and just the foundation that he has. He's continuing that going into this season. Obviously, an 8-year contract definitely helps with the donations that he's going to do for Benny's Buddies for the Humane Society of Broward. He's going to have some merchandise as well. Obviously, Paul Maurice showed that off big time in the Stanley Cup parade. So that's one thing that we saw this year. So a little bit of differences. We did not see a video, at least as to my knowledge, of Sam Bennett on what he wanted to do with his day with the Cup last year. Remember, when the Panthers won the Stanley Cup, one of Sam Bennett's dreams was to eat Captain Crunch out of the Stanley Cup. So a little bit of a difference this year versus last. And he also he spoke about it a little bit on the Empty Netters pod that he's not going to necessarily implement that part of the days with the Cup. So this isn't necessarily unexpected that he went to this route. Last year, also he was able to put a puppy in the cups. We saw that with Sam Reinhart as well, where the puppy also looked scared with getting in the cup. He was frailing in his arms, Sam Reinhart, but then Sam Bennett has also placed the puppy in the cup and also was able to put a baby in the cup as well. Aaron Ekblad did the same thing during his day with the cup. But before I transition to Aaron Ekblad, the most hilarious thing that we saw from Sam Bennett's day with the cup when he took it around the water and he was wakeboarding. So he was wakeboarding. The Stanley Cup was in the back of the boat, obviously tied so it doesn't fall into the water or go anywhere, because we saw the Panthers get in a little bit of trouble last time the Stanley Cup went into a body of water with Matthew Tkachuk doing that just outside of the Elbow Room in downtown Fort Lauderdale. But Phil Pritchard caught a video of while he was wakeboarding, playing the song Pink Pony Club, and just the ultimate troll. And Sam Bennett, the pest on the ice that he is, and also adding salt into the wound with doing that for his day with the Stanley Cup. A little bit of a change that Aaron Ekblad has also put in his day with the Cup. Last year, he spent a good amount of it in Windsor, Ontario, where he is from, on the western side of Ontario, right across the border from Detroit, Michigan. But this time he decided to bring the Stanley Cup to his junior club in Barrie, where he played with the Barrie Colts, played 3 seasons there right before signing with the Panthers right at 18 and going into the lineup right away. So, and also what we saw with Aaron Ekblad is a nice little touch with the hat that he was wearing that said back-to-back champs, and just the merchandise that has come out with the back-to-back champs. I mean, in the parade, we saw reigning champs with the 2 eyes, right? Replacing the 2 eyes with the Stanley Cup. Back-to-back champs. We saw Matthew Tkachuk with repeat upside down across, in the locker room clean out as soon as we spoke to him after the fact. And just the fact that so many cool merch ideas have come with the back-to-back champs. But honestly, I'll be truthful. I spent less on championship gear this year because I spent hundreds last year. Tell me if you guys relate in the comments that I spent less this year because there's only so much that I could spend. And last year took a lot out of me. And to do that 2 years in a row, my wallet can only take so much. And I know quite a few fans who have also can relate to that as well. But also, if we want to attend games, we got to start saving up some money in order to attend the games, as we spoke about it earlier in the season about season tickets going up, and also that's also gonna affect single game tickets. Right now, single game tickets are on sale. You can go to floridapanthers.com for that, which right now before fees, opening night for the Florida Panthers against the Chicago Blackhawks on October 7th is ranging around the 150s. So hey, a 2-time Stanley Cup champion for and a back-to-back supply and demand. This is the price of being a champion in any region. Your prices are going to go up. But hey, the Toronto Maple Leafs, they to a pair for over $1,000 for Mitch Marner's return. You won't even see that for the biggest game of the year for the Florida Panthers. Not even half that price. So we still have it great in South Florida based on just the price of admission to go to a hockey game in our region. We've got great weather here, no state income tax, and a reasonable price to watch a Stanley Cup champion. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss the TV deals that are going on in the different sports leagues, and where does that leave the NHL. We'll discuss this and more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize that you want to be with friends. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, maybe for opening night of the Florida Panthers against the Chicago Blackhawks, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Price on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch or puck drop, and they're got incredible last minute deals. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday, even with me currently out of my home base and road tripping here. Still wanted to bring you guys a podcast here right before we hit the weekend. So I wanted to take this time. This is more of an NHL discussion more than it is a Florida Panthers discussion. And crazy because when you think of just the national TV deals that are going on in the sports leagues, I don't know how much you guys keep up with everything, but as someone who's been in TV for the past decade, started off my career with NBC Universal working at the Golf Channel right before transitioning over to Locked On, which used to work in a newsroom, and then obviously if you are an everydayer and have been with me for the last few years, I was part of budget cuts for NBC, and that's how I ended up here with Locked On. But now with the current TV deals that are currently going on with now the MLB and the NFL and NBA, there have been a few changes now over the last few months, where the NHL currently has 3 years left on their current TV deal, but the NBA officially ended their contract with the TNT. So where that leaves a lot of room for the NHL. But before we get there, where the league, as far as the NBA is going, all the days that they would have games where the NFL would have it, like Thursday Night Football's on Amazon Prime, they would have Sunday Night Football on NBC. Right as soon as the NFL season is over, the NBA is going to be replacing that. Also, they're adding Mondays on Peacock for them. Wednesdays and Fridays are reserved for games on ESPN, which that isn't something new. The NHL will continue to do their games on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which we still don't know what the national TV schedule is for the NHL. There are TV gets to decide everything. This is nothing that the NHL really has a lot of control over. So television is the big bosses when it comes to what games are broadcasted there. And also, once January hits, usually you have the games on ABC. For Saturdays, the afternoon games are reserved for hockey, while the primetime games are reserved for the NBA. While TNT Sports in January would have their afternoon games on TNT and or TBS. But MLB is also going through a little bit of a change where NBC Universal and Apple Plus are trying to take are kind of bidding right now for Sunday Night Baseball. So that contract with ESPN is going to come to an end. So if NBC does end up getting the rights to Sunday Night Baseball, are they going to broadcast it on NBC and then or Peacock? Chances are it's going to be on Peacock because of the fact that NBC would have the NBA on Sunday nights, and then in football season they would have Sunday Night Football. That makes me believe that it's possibly going to be either Peacock or maybe Apple Plus gets that as well. Netflix is also trying to bid for the Home Run Derby as well. So a lot of these different streaming platforms are trying to bid in these different sports leagues. But also, ESPN purchased NFL Network and Red Zone, and also they're trying to get MLB.TV so that it's only one direct-to-consumer product and one place to go, which also means that the price per month of your monthly subscription is likely going to be higher, unfortunately, in that. So a lot less apps that a lot of us that we as fans are trying to get to. But honestly, these streaming platforms are making it really tough to be a fan, even though a lot of us are cutting the cord. So where does that leave the NHL? Because the biggest complaint for us is just accessibility at times, and obviously with TNT, you could get those games on Max, HBO Max. Well, it's now called Max, but that's how you can get your games on TNT and ESPN Plus. But a lot of the issues with ESPN Plus has been, you need to add a subscription from your TV provider in order to watch games on the big network, ESPN. ESPN Plus does have the out of market games that is part of the subscription, but are they gonna cut that part out as far as the TV provider login part, at least make it easier for us to watch the games? But what you mentioned earlier, TNT is no longer part of the NBA. They are part of Wednesday, and like we mentioned, Sundays after the Super Bowl. So with Tuesdays and Thursdays open more, and possibly even Fridays, will TNT make that give themselves an opportunity to pounce on the chance? When you commit certain years and a certain dollar amount, you're not necessarily contractually obligated to add those extra days of the week. So that's where a little bit of a head scratcher when it comes to when these games will be broadcasted on these national networks. But at the same time, with 3 years left on this current deal, which the Stanley Cup Final this year is going to be on ABC and the Disney family of networks. TNT 1 more year, and then ESPN in the final year, and then the NHL will have to agree to a new TV deal after that. So that is a little bit of something that the NHL has to kind of think about in the future, and these TV networks. But let's also consider the fact that ESPN has had the wild card round for Major League Baseball over the last few years, and that has hurt the NHL as far as starting the season a little later than we fans have wanted them to. And we talk about off season and everything, and the fact that the season's too long, the fact that we shouldn't be seeing hockey this late into June. I mean, again, we've complained and so many times about the first Panthers Stanley Cup championship, June 24th, 2024. There was the draft in between, and then you only get less than 24 hours of the parade, and then free agency is the very next day. Thankfully, that wasn't the case this year, but you don't want that scenario you don't even want to test that scenario. And also doesn't help that the NHL puts these long gaps in between the end of the conference final and the start of the Stanley Cup final. So that is their own doing, that they've shot themselves in the foot so many times. But with ESPN and not having the wild card round in probably in the future, this gives the league an opportunity to push it up a week. And also, let's not forget there's an 84 game schedule coming next season. Now everything is going to be equal as far as division games. You're going to see your division opponents now 4 times, because you would see 5 of your division opponents 4 times, and then 2 of the division opponents of yours 3. So it'd be a little odd when it comes to which teams. And sometimes in the rotation, the Panthers would only play the Tampa Bay Lightning 3 times. That should never happen under this current construction. I still believe that that each team should visit each market once. The whole discussion about whether it's once a year or once every other year and putting more division games, I don't agree with that. I think someone like Connor McDavid should visit every single market at least once. Sidney Crosby at least once. Alexander Barkov at least once. But this gives us an opportunity where most times you're playing 3 games a week, and if you're pushing that to start, and I looked ahead at 2026, where an 84 game season will be implemented, along with the TV deal that's changing the landscape of not just the NHL. Yes, 3 years left, but this does affect them in some way. So possibly, when I'm looking ahead at the calendar and seeing that the first Tuesday of October is October 6th, next year of October 1st will be on that Thursday. So we could possibly see the season next year start as early as September 29th with the banner raising ceremony. We hope that it's the Florida Panthers lifting their 3rd straight banner, the first 3-peat since the early 80s, and that we could see this team celebrate for a longer period of time, right before free agency hits. Even though the Panthers, the band is going to be back together after next season, whether they win the championship, fall short in the Stanley Cup final, or even our round 1 exit. We know that this team is going to be together for a long time, which is the great thing about this. So that's just my take on it. What opportunity are these the TV networks, especially TNT and the NHL, going to do when it comes to the change in the landscape of media and sports? So that's kind of like the conversation that I wanted to bring here on the show. So tell me what you guys think of what you guys think if you're nerding out of this stuff like I do. But comment down below. But coming up in segment number 3, we are going to discuss which Florida Panthers could be worthy of being placed in the top 100, as the NHL has released their rankings, and also Locked On is also going to be discussing and also voting on the top 100 players in the NHL. That's all coming up next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions, so whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So, will Josh Allen win his 2nd consecutive MVP? There's also a few challengers in the mix, like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, or does the best running back in the NFL in Saquon Barkley, does he have a chance for possibly a rushing title? Got a brand new contract, so will he be able to get to a position where he'd be the first running back in quite a few years to win the MVP? What are the chances that the Miami Dolphins win the division? Right now, they are plus 700 to win the division. Not the favorite, though. But if you want to get some big winnings, you could place all your bets there at FanDuel. So visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because FanDuel Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. And once again, I'd like to thank you guys for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday edition of the show. And so, like I mentioned and I teased in prior to segment number 3, The NHL has also been releasing top positions at top players at each position. Excuse me, and it's funny because Gustav Forsling has it has shut down multiple guys over the last 2 years in the postseason, but for some reason he dropped from the number 6 best defenseman to number 12. And I guess that these guys at the NHL are looking at that the fact that his plus minus in this year's playoffs wasn't as high as the 2024 postseason, so that's a little bit of a drop. But plus minus isn't necessarily the be all end all stat. As we've discussed so many times on the show, Sam Bennett entered the NHL uh, at, at, as the 20th best center in the league. Is that the Conn Smythe boost for him as far as being the 20th best center in the NHL? And Alexander Barkov, he's ranked fourth with as far as the release of from the league. But the Locked On Network is about to put a poll together on who is going to be part of the player poll for the top 100 as voted by every single Locked On host. So as of right now, each host is required to submit at most 7 players to be part of this poll. This isn't necessarily a ranking right now as of where they exactly rank. So I want to discuss with you guys and tell me if you guys disagree. Feel free to say in the comments or even tweet at me at Monoman12 at LO underscore FLA Panthers on X and on Instagram to discuss who you think could be possibly part of the top 100 poll. But I'm going to discuss a little bit about the players that I believe should be part of the poll. And like I said, it has to be up to 7. So the last spot was a little bit more difficult for me. So I'm going to list the guys who are obvious for me as far as being part of the poll. So Alexander Barkov, three-time Selke winner, has been the example as far as two-way play. Gets all the line matchups, especially when they're at home against the opposition's best players. Matthew Tkachuk, definitely the identity changer for the Florida Panthers once they made that trade. Has a 104-point season. Can score over a point, be a over a point per game score any year that he is healthy. Won't get to that 80-point mark this year, as he is expected to at least be out until the new year. We still don't have at least the latest update on that outside of possibly 5 months from now that he could be out. Sam Reinhart, his floor in a year that he's healthy, and to think that he's played 300 plus games over these last few seasons, and although he missed some time in the conference final, he's durable. His floor is usually 35 goals a season, which yes, 57 was a little bit of an outlier just a few years ago, but even a dip in production, scoring 39 goals is still a very high feat. And of course, he can take faceoffs on the right side, can play penalty kill, and also another Selke finalist for the Panthers. And 2 guys on the same team, played a good amount of center, transition to the wing. If out in the case that Alexander Barkov is hurt, he can play center if he needs to. Mostly that's reserved for Anton Lundell to graduate up into the lineup temporarily, but we haven't had to see Sam Reinhart officially shift from wing to center for a good portion of the season. So thankfully, with the center depth that the Panthers have, that is definitely a big plus. And also, even in the Panthers' bottom 6, they have guys who could shift from wing to center. Guys like Jesper Boquist, Eetu Luostarinen, those are guys who could be part of it. So right now, Barkov, Tkachuk, Reinhart are guys that I've submitted for the Players Poll. Gustav Forsling, I put Gustav Forsling in the mix. I mentioned earlier in the segment that he is part of the top 20 defensemen in the NHL. Currently in the NHL's ranking, he is ranked 12th. But I just think with Gustav Forsling, what he does at even strength and the penalty kill, which it's funny because the Panthers have put on their YouTube channel full games with no commercials, so you could watch a lot of their games that they've been posting lately in less than an hour and a half. And I want to take the time sometime in the next few weeks to watch Game 6 again, because I remember just doing our post game show with Jacob Winans on for our June 18th show when the Panthers won on June 17th, on just how impactful and how much Gustav Forsling put the finishing touches on the Stanley Cup final, just giving the Edmonton Oilers like literally no space as they were trying to drive to the net, and honestly not getting their first goal in that game until less than 10 minutes left in the third period, which the Panthers consistently have shut down. I mean, you think about consecutive runs, how in clinchers the Panthers have allowed, especially in 2024, where they would allow one goal or less in the game, where they would need to put a chokehold on the opposition. And as far as clinching series, yes, the Panthers, that fourth win has always been difficult for them. But when they have clinched series, Gustav Forsling has been at the forefront of that. And also another guy who's been at the forefront of that has been Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, yes, he's not winning Vezina trophies. Yeah, he was a finalist just a few years ago. But you think of now when at 37 years old for Sergei Bobrovsky, it's up for debate on whether he's at really past on Andre Vasilevsky, even though he has a year left on his contract. But this is a matter of what have you done for me lately, and what has Sergei Bobrovsky done for the Panthers lately, and just been able to be a brick wall. We've seen so many highlight reel saves. I mean, the one against Matt Dumba, the double save against Gage Gonzalez in the 2025 run, the big one on Logan Stankoven in the conference final just this year, and I mean those stand out as far as game changing moments for this Florida Panthers team. My sixth one is Seth Jones. I think we discussed this earlier in the week about Seth Jones' chances at Team USA, and the fact that he got so much hate at first when he was first brought in, because people look at the contract. People still were a little hesitant on Seth Jones because of how his numbers looked in Chicago, but completely different situation. I mean, we've seen this before so many times with players coming from one situation to the next. Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart, Brandon Montour, all that for the Panthers. And then what happens? They're able to elevate their play with better players around them, and that's why I have Seth Jones, because he can play on both sides of the power of special teams. Can quarterback the first unit. Likely is once again going to start as the quarterback on the power play once again. Come game one of the regular season. It's crazy because when the Panthers lost Brandon Montour to free agency, let's not forget that Adam Boquist was the guy to start the year, and then he gets hit in the face with a puck, and then it's all a little bit of a juggle from then on out. Even Uvis Balinskis was running power play one for a good portion of the season last year, and the last one was a little bit difficult for me. I was choosing between one player or another, and honestly, tell me if you guys would rather another player. But I had to choose between Carter Verhaeghe and Sam Bennett, and it's crazy because even in a down year for Carter Verhaeghe, he still had over 50 points for the Panthers this past year. And for Sam Bennett, this was the highest points that he's ever gotten in his career. Will this new contract for Sam Bennett up his production in the first few years? Possibly. I could possibly see that happening in the first few years of the deal, where he's maybe around the 60 point range. It's going to be a little bit difficult without having Matthew Tkachuk on his wing there. You're going to have Mackie Siemaszkiewicz and likely Evan Rodriguez to start the year. But I think positional value really matters, which is why I'm putting Sam Bennett ahead of Carter Verhaeghe. And you might look at the stats and say, well, Carter Verhaeghe in some years is mostly a 70-point player. But I think of just the Sam Bennett's ability to drive play, what he does in the postseason, and just the intimidation that he brings to opponents, and just the sandpaper, the grit, the fact that he gets more to the dirty areas than Carter Verhaeghe, who's more of an off-puck type of player. He doesn't nearly drive play, not nearly to the level. Obviously, he's a winger, Sam Bennett's a center. So I think that Sam Bennett gets that spot over Carter Higgy. And obviously it helps with him winning the Conn Smythe recently in this year's playoffs. So I think that really matters as far as how we see Sam Bennett as a player and what he brings. Yeah, at times whenever he is hurt, like what we saw in the 2024 run where he took that shot off the hand, Anton Lundell goes up the line, and then the Panthers don't really miss too much of a beat after that, which the great thing about this lineup once again is that Anton Lundell on most teams would be in the top six. He on some rebuilding teams, he'd be the top line center. On middling teams, he would be the second line center. But in the case of the Florida Panthers, he's the third line center. So the fact that once again, 1, 2, and 3 down the middle for the Panthers, they are one of the best, if not the best, in the NHL. And I think that I can't see myself leaving Sam Bennett off due to the position and what he does, especially because he's so fast at the dump and chase game where he gets there a lot of the times faster than the defense. The Panthers could get on their forecheck, and then if battles are lost, that creates the more high danger opportunities against the opposition. So I just think that ability for Sam Bennett, regardless of the stats, I think that's why I have him over Carter Higgy. If you guys disagree, feel free to comment down below. But if you think another player should be on there that's not Sam Bennett nor Carter Higgy, or even some of the guys that I listed before them, tell me why they should be on there. And hey, I'll definitely respond to you guys here on the YouTube channel, and even if you guys decide to tweet me or message me on Instagram there. But that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'll be back from my road trip sometime around Monday, so we will likely bring you guys a show on Tuesday morning here on your podcast and YouTube feeds. Maybe we'll even bring you guys it on Monday if I get home in time and get myself in a position to podcast as well. So thank you guys once again for listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed some of the background noise, and if you're on the YouTube channel, the views in the background here. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast and be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.